You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 84. Resisting the temptation of being busy in favor of being productive with Matt Sandrini. If you are an entrepreneur who wants actionable solutions to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm really looking forward to bringing this episode to you because you get to meet our guest, Matt Sandrini. Matt is a business and time coach and founder of TimeZillionaire.com. Matt helps business owners and top executives worldwide own their calendar and get disproportionate results in life and business. He runs a remote business that allows him to travel for 6 months a year. When listening in on my conversation, you will discover 3 major reasons you're tempted to be busy, ways to overcome those temptations and be productive, how to prevent necessary busy work from taking over your day, why creating boundaries will tame your inbox, how using a blocker can help break time-wasting addictions, the word you must be comfortable saying to be productive, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Matt. This episode of Productivity Straight Talk is brought to you by my very own signature coaching and training program, Stop the Entrepreneur's Success Solution. If you are ready to stop struggling in your business and start succeeding, head on over to theproductivityspecialist.com/stop to find out more. Again, that's theproductivityspecialist.com/stop, STOP. Hello, Matt. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Amber.
This has been a conversation long time in the making, hasn't it?
Yes. I remember when we first spoke was a few months ago, maybe close to a year, I think. And it was good. We had a chat on our way to work and we decided that we should actually jump on our microphones and have this chat on the podcast. So I'm glad that we got to it today.
Yes, we have a really great topic for our listeners today, but perhaps I should have you talk about follow-up because your follow-up was extraordinary. And I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and businesses could use some tips on how you followed up with me. It was really, really good. And so I'm glad to have you here today. Before we jump into today's topic, though, I would love for you to share with us a little bit about yourself. What are you up to? What are you excited about? What do we need to know about Matt?
I'm the founder of Time Zillionaire, which is a blog at timezillionaire.com, but also I work with CEOs and founders and I coach them to get their objectives right, their objectives very clear, but also I help them get the tools and the consistency to have that discipline to own their time, own their week, and actually make those objectives happen. Because we can all have a lot of good intentions, but then if we don't put in the work, it's not going to happen. And that's where I also come in, with a bit of like making people feel a bit guilty if they don't take action and give that accountability, which is always good.
Yes. So we're really similar. And I know that we had a great conversation because we had such a passion for helping business owners and productivity and all about time. And for my longtime listeners, they know that sometimes we can jam out about this topic. And I love it because I always learn new things. And so having someone else on that may be in the same field of productivity, I guess, or subject matter, I'm here as a student listening and learning just as the listeners are learning, right? And that really, really excites me. So I think that you shared something with me pretty exciting. Are you right in the middle of some major travel?
Yeah, that's right. I'm 5.5 months into my, 6 months of travels. I spent the past 6 months in a different country every month. So I started from Portugal, went to Spain, then Italy, and ended in Greece and a few more other places on the way. It was really, really good. And it's something that had been in the making for a little while because it was an idea I had in mind for some time. And I really wanted to travel and be a local, not just go for a weekend or be like an external person that just goes there and sees the place. I just wanted to experience a new place and to be uncomfortable and learn a new alphabet sometimes, or like speak to new people, find a place with good internet, or even find a place to buy groceries and understand what those letters meant and those bags at the grocery shop. So it was really good. And I wanted to do it for a very long time, a couple of years, I would say. And so I made sure that I was building and growing my business around the opportunity to be able to do that and create that possibility. But then, there was a bit of a lag between when I actually did that and when I put the trigger and said, okay, it's time to do it. Let's go for 6 months and let's switch places every month. It's been really, really good.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So I have a few questions. Do you have a base home, or did you let go of like your base home while you were gone for 6 months?
I don't have a base home at the moment. I'm moving back to London very, very soon. But yeah, I just moved out and went traveling. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so inspiring, right? Like everything you own, I guess, is in your backpack and your carry-on. Yeah.
I really like the values of minimalism. And I think that I apply that to time as well, because we all have 24 hours, but sometimes we try to play the sort of 25-hour game, I call it, when we try to make the day longer and work on everything and say yes to everything. And I feel that even in this case, you have to be a bit of a minimalist and decide actually what's important to me in my personal life, in my work, what do I work on, right? And that's really important to me. And I feel that I like to apply that principle to many different areas of my life. And having to do this with my possessions and just bring one suitcase, that was great. And it was my choice. I could have brought 3, but I just wanted 1 because I thought I really want to see what happens if I have to put everything into one suitcase and just keep it for 6 months and bring it with me. Yeah, it was really good. It was a great lesson, actually.
I love how you paralleled that with our time. And if you ask that same question, what if you got your workday done in 6 hours or 5 hours instead of 8, 10 or 12, right? Really pushing yourself from 3 suitcases to 1. And it worked, right? You stayed clothed, you had everything you needed. And I love that parallel with time. All right. So let's dive into today's topic, which we wanted to talk all about the temptation of being busy, because I think every single person listening is ideally, we're always working on our high value activities, but that temptation to just keep working, I guess, on the unimportant stuff, how would you define busy work?
Yeah, I would say the busy work is whenever we try to create that movement. So we feel that we are creating a lot of ripples around us, but we're not going anywhere. So I always talk about being on a treadmill or going outside and just having a brisk walk. You can sweat on a treadmill for an hour. It's not going to get you anywhere. You're not going to move. You're just going to stay in that place. But if you go for a really slow walk, then you're going to go somewhere by definition because you're moving somewhere. And I feel that being busy, it's always like trying to create that movement, but without having that distance. So we work on a lot of things that keep us busy. Time passes, but we don't see any results. Whereas when we are being productive, we might just work on 1 thing or 2 or 3 things, but they make a big difference in our life and in our business. And it doesn't really matter the movement. What we care about is, have we got closer to our goals? And it's that distance that really matters, I think.
The distance. Would you agree? Because I have days that I feel like, oh my gosh, I think I was just busy all day. I know, right? Some days it takes putting some time in to do the busy work in our businesses. Yeah. I feel so much more exhausted on busy days than I do on productive days. And yet the results are vastly different. One moves the needle in my business and I get huge rewards. And the other one, I felt like literally what you were saying is running in one place, right? And not getting anywhere and feeling exhausted at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is so true. I feel the same. And I suspect is because when you are productive, you are creating something. And I feel that when I create something new, I feel really good. I'm rejuvenated. I feel that my energy is renovating and it just increases. I could put in more energy if I want to, or put into something else. But if I'm just being busy, it feels that it's just draining me and I'm not seeing any results. So it's also a bit frustrating, right?
Yes, for sure. So why do you think that we are so, in your opinion, so tempted to work on the busy stuff?
Yeah, so I would say there are 3 main causes. So the number 1 is a lack of clarity. We don't really know what we want to accomplish with our day, with our week, with our month, or maybe in general. And so we just work on the next thing. And that could be, we open our inbox and there's a new email, maybe a new 20 new emails, right? And that's what we do. Or maybe someone walks up to our desk and they say, hey, do this, or hey, why don't you do that? Or maybe we get a call and we just do it because our priorities are not very clear. Or again, it's very easy to chase a shiny tactic if you don't really know what you want to achieve, right? There's always something that it feels like a shortcut, but you actually know that if you go that way, you will lose all the work you've done so far. So actually, it's not really a shortcut. I feel that like that lack of clarity makes you more vulnerable to actually being busy and not working on things that move the needle.
Yeah. So what do you think we should be clear on? Projects or specifically our goals? Where are you coming in from with regards to clarity?
So I like to look at long-term goals, or at least like 6 months ahead. And it really depends on a project. It could be a shorter term project, but you really want to look at what you're trying to accomplish at the end. And then what I like to do is I break it down into milestones. So usually it could be a monthly milestone. That's really important because you don't want to wait until the very end to know that you haven't done enough work, or maybe you're too late, or things are not going to work out. If you know that at the end, it's too late. You can't do anything else. So you want to know it throughout that time that you have. So if you can know it 1 month in out of 6, then you can adjust your actions, you can adjust your tactics. You can just get feedback in time. So that's one thing. But also, once you have those milestones, then you can work backwards to what actions do I need to take in order to get to those milestones and hit those milestones. So at that point, it's no longer guesswork where you're going to think, you're going to look at your day ahead. And you go like, okay, what can I do? Okay, this sounds good. You know exactly that these actions are going to take you to that point in time because you looked at the whole picture and then worked backwards the actions that you need to take to get to the final result. It's kind of like having a map. You know, you wouldn't sit in your car and say, I want to go somewhere, drive straight, turn right. And then, no, you would look at where you want to go and then look at the turns and look at the streets you need to take. Yes. So sometimes when it comes to work, we start driving first and then we decide where we want to go.
Right. No, I agree. I teach the very same thing. So I teach it destination by design. You know where your destination is and you design the path backwards, right? And I think the other words that maybe you were alluding to is being reactive versus proactive, right? And when we have clarity, we're proactive and we're backing that into how we're investing our time. When we're reactive, that's literally when we're sitting, putting out fires, sitting in our emails, the busy stuff, right? I think that you had some other things about why it feels so good to be busy sometimes, right? Like it's almost addictive. And I don't say that lightly. We get something from that. So what are your thoughts around why we tend to always fall back to being busy?
If we tackle a very small task like one email, or if we tackle a really big task that could take an entire day or maybe 2 days, our brain kind of tricks us into thinking that we accomplish the same level thing, meaning that our brain has a reward system that gives us some good chemicals that makes us feel good whenever we do something that we have accomplished something new, we have accomplished something that makes our day better and that gets us closer to our objectives. And in this case, it doesn't really matter if that's one email, you have accomplished something, or if it's something much, much bigger. So the thing is now, if you go through your inbox and you have 100 emails in your inbox, and you're going to have 100 of those signals, 100 of those little releases of chemicals from your brain and in your brain, and you're going to feel good about it. And actually, you're going to want more of that, which means the next day, like you were saying, you are more likely to go back to that inbox, go back to that useless task, whatever it is, because your brain makes you a little bit addictive to that.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to let you in on a little inside secret. I know that it's wildly known that you're supposed to do your highest value activity first thing in the morning. I get that. That's productivity 101. However, even as the productivity specialist, I do not go with that. It never worked for me. I never felt like as soon as I was sitting down at my desk that I was able to focus on that high value activity. So I am always a proponent of finding out your authentic way of like, what's the way that you work best? And for me, I found out that I'm kind of like a car that needs to be warmed up. And so I actually schedule in time, 30 minutes to process my emails, and I schedule a few smaller tasks that would technically be in what I call the other bucket or the busy work to get me going and warmed up and like whatever, those endorphins going and some wins for the day. But I have particular time frames for it. And then I take that, I'm in it, I'm working, I'm sitting at my desk, I'm getting that feedback. I feel like I've checked off some things off my to-do list. And then I jump into my high value activity. So I take that feeling and I use it as momentum into the thing that I may feel not as motivated to jump right into first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And since it's confession time, for me, sometimes I'm really tempted to check my inbox. I only have emails on my laptop and my computer. So what I actually do is whenever I'm writing or I'm doing a task which is really deep and I really want to get lost in that task and really make sure that I give it my all, I use a blocker that doesn't allow me to go and visit my emails. And I find that to be really, really good, and especially really good to break those behaviors which are dictated by that sort of addiction. I want that goodie. I want to feel good, right? So I feel that blocker works really well for me.
So you use it as an external accountability. Like if you don't have the willpower to stay off of social media or in your emails, you have a program that overlays and blocks you out. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, I kind of don't want to use my willpower for that. So if I have something else that is external that can do it for me and I can save up my willpower for better decisions, that's great. That's win-win.
Oh my gosh, that is a great point. I want to pull that out because willpower is a diminished resource as we get tired and decision making throughout the day. And so the way you just said that is that you're going to use technology to help you preserve your willpower for the higher value decision making. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier as well about having those milestones and working back to sort of having clear actions every day. If you do that once, when you look at the big picture, then you already know what you're going to have to do and you don't have to decide on that day by day. Again, the willpower is saved for big decisions.
Is there any other reason why you think we're so tempted to fall back to being busy or the busy work? Like, why is it always calling our names when we intellectually know, and I'm going to say we because people have been listening to Productivity Straight Talk for some time, right? Is that we know that being productive is working on your high value activities, investing in the activities that are going to move you towards your goals. That's how I describe it. So we've talked about that it's habits, that it feels good, and it's lack of clarity. Do you think there's anything else that contributes to why we're so tempted?
Yeah, I would say one last thing is the external pressure of other people wanting us to do something. And that can happen in many different ways. It can be someone walking up to your desk, or it can just be a deadline that someone has given you, which is not very clear. You don't know why that's there. You don't know what it will unlock, but you feel that you have to do it for someone else. The irony there is that sometimes that same deadline, that same external work comes from the other person being busy and not having their priorities straight and just sort of spraying tasks around. So in a way, it's like a loop of being busy and keeping other people busy. So that's why it's very, very important to actually break that loop and make sure that you have your priorities straight, make sure that you work on what you were saying earlier, high value activities, so you can break that loop and be a great example for other people. And then if they do the same, you will be less busy because they will give you less of those busy tasks that don't get you anywhere.
Yes. One thing that came up for me when you said that is wanting to make other people happy is the feeling that when someone emails you that you need to respond immediately. And some people don't, like literally their emails have thousands upon thousands of emails. They get lost. But the feeling that you should have done something creates stress, whether you did it or not. And for some, the feeling that you should actually creates the temptation to jump in and just respond anytime somebody's requesting your attention, specifically through email, but they can come in from anywhere. And I think that one of the best ways that I have worked on that is setting boundaries and expectations with my clients. My clients know that if they email me, they'll hear back from me within one business day. So like 24 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And just communicating that releases me from feeling like they're expecting anything different. And they know what to expect. And so I'm still giving good customer service. Because if I hadn't had that one conversation, I could potentially be sabotaging day after day, just thinking I need to respond every single time someone dings my inbox.
And also when you know that, when you make it clear to the other person what they can expect, you also empower them to do something else. So sometimes when I work with someone, I recommend that they put on in their signature, they set the expectation and say, I check my inbox at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day. And so the other person knows that they can expect a reply at 11 a.m. or 3 p.m. or whatever that is. So if it's urgent, they can pick up the phone, or maybe they can figure out that answer in a different way. And so they are empowered to do something else. So in a way, the pressure is off you, but also the other person is empowered to do something else. And there are many ways to be clear on that. And as long as you are clear, you don't feel guilty and the other person can go on anyway.
Yes. And for some reason, you just said like they are empowered to maybe figure it out another way or ask somebody else, or there's lots of options, right? And so when you go to respond, sometimes it's taken care of. Like that's very much the case if you have multiple staff reporting to you, right? Employees, if you are always available and you're literally going to respond to any time they need you, then that's going to continue. That's never going to change. But if there's a delay and you're putting them in a position where they need to figure out an alternative solution, you'll be surprised how many of these issues that you thought needed your immediate attention actually get resolved.
They go away. Yeah. And in a way, it's giving the space to the rest of your team to be able to figure it out and be independent. And then that way they can actually be independent. And as a business owner, you can then be free to work on your high value activities and set the vision for the business. Very often it happens that when the team expands, then the founder can no longer work on those strengths that have brought the business to where it is right now. And very often there's like a plateau, right? So being able to do that and just step back and say, okay, you will figure it out. And if you can't, I'll be there for you, but you need to have the space to do it. It's very often a game changer for the whole team and the vision and the founder as well.
Yes. So do you have any other tips for us that you wanted to share with regards to taming that temptation?
Yeah. So a really good tip, which is a bit sophisticated, but I'll give a simpler one as well in a little bit, is to plan your day in advance. This actually doesn't take a very long time, but I like to recommend to plan your day in advance as the last thing that you do in your workday. So whether you finish at 4 p.m., 5 p.m., maybe earlier, maybe later, it doesn't matter. I'm not judging. The last thing that I think you should do is to just look at your next day and go like, okay, what do I need to accomplish tomorrow? And then what do I need to do in order to accomplish that? That way, you will already know what you want to do with your day. And when you wake up, instead of having to guess, instead of having to think about it, and instead of having the opportunity to open your inbox and get lost in it, you are very clear. And again, we also go back to that willpower we were talking about earlier. If that decision is already on paper the previous evening, in the morning, you don't have to decide. Now your willpower is there for the next big decision. And so you can just work on your high value activities and everything is already set and there for you. I'm a big fan also of preparing things for your future self. And in this case, you wake up and some of the homework is already there, ready, waiting for you. And it's been done by yourself yesterday. And I think that's always a good feeling.
It is. So I also recommend this. And here's one of the reasons I second this. I know personally for myself, and I know from all of my clients, that it's very true that we do not wake up the same way every day. And what I mean by that is some days I feel like I'm going to go slay my goals and I'm all in and excited to start the day. And some days I don't. And if we just wait to plan our day based on the way we feel, when we're inconsistent with the way that we are coming at our businesses each day, we're going to get inconsistent results. But by doing what you said, which is planning our day the night before, then it takes the decision-making out, as you said. And now our job is just to follow the plan. And it takes the emotions and the feelings out of it. I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do this. And every time we let our emotions control that, it's a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also it's confusing because, again, that mood or that energy you wake up in, it's deciding where your day is going. Whereas if you already have a plan, it doesn't matter. Like you were saying, it doesn't matter how you feel. You're just going to do it. So you're kind of insuring yourself against a bad day.
Yes, I agree. Awesome. Okay. You said you had one more tip you were going to share with us. What's that?
Yeah, one more tip is to just say no more often. Be more comfortable saying no. And I think that a good way to frame it, to make it easier to learn to say no, is to understand that we only have 24 hours. We all have 24 hours. So whenever we say yes, we're actually saying no to everything else that we could do in that same time. So actually saying yes is a stronger no, that you are saying no to many, many things. Whenever you say no, you just say no to one thing and keeping that slot for something else that is more important, maybe someone else that's more important or something that's more important to you. And so actually when you frame it that way, then it becomes easier to say no to whether it's a person or a request or a task or something else that you want to do. It just becomes easier when you understand that behind every yes, there are many no's. Behind every no, there's just one no.
Yes. So I agree with this. I think that there's a huge opportunity cost. And I feel like business owners are so tempted. They feel like it's an opportunity. And if they say no to it, what if it's the opportunity that's going to do X, Y, and Z? Like they're just not sure. And so they don't want to turn anything down. And or along the way, they've been told you should say yes to everything because anything could be your next right move in your business. And I just don't agree with that. I think that strategy trumps that. I think that there's a combination of, let's say, Matt, you came to me and said you wanted to collaborate on something, right? And it might be an amazing idea and it might be an amazing thing to collaborate on. But what I do and I teach my clients is to filter every opportunity through their goals and vision of success. And when I say filter it, it's like taking it to that next level that we're talking about on clarity. What are my milestones? What are my quarterly goals? What are my yearly goals? And then I have to say, Matt, man, you're nice. And I think this would be a great collaboration, but it's not a fit right now based on my goals. Like it gets easier to know what to say no and what to say yes to when we take it back and relook at those clarity, those goals, those milestones that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's really good. I really like the filter idea. And it is something that I'm a big fan of as well. Just using those goals and that clarity as a filter for your opportunities and your actions. And I find that gives you a lot of clarity. And again, it makes it easier to just decide what you need to do.
Yeah. I think that one more tip too, this is something that my coach actually shared with me, was that there are very few decisions that are a one-way door, which means when you say yes or you say no, it's closed and you can never go through that door again. And so when he shared that with me, it was a huge aha, because when you say no, it could honestly be, no, it's not the right time. Can we revisit this in Q1? No, this isn't the right time. Can we revisit it next month? Right? If it's truly something you want to do, and making sure that when you do commit your time, energy, focus, your team, whatever it takes, that it's in alignment with your goals. For me, that took a lot of, anxiety off of making the decision, because I thought it was I need to say yes or I need to say no. Right. And thinking that then it's just off the table and it won't happen. Whereas looking at it as, well, what situation would make this better for me? And usually it's a time thing, right? Or it's let me see once I plan out my next quarter, if I have the resources to commit to this, whatever it is, project. There's so many opportunities out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have that focus, the thing is, you can be a lot faster in whatever you're doing right now, whether it's an experiment, a new project, or an old project that you want to grow. You can be a lot faster because you can focus your resources, your time, and your attention onto those things. So in a way, it's a faster way to then try the next thing and be able to say yes to something else, because you're faster in what you're doing right now. Then you're faster moving on to something else. Does that make sense?
Yes. And Matt, I would also think that it is probably one of the number one reasons why people have so many unfinished projects, because they then say yes to everything and then realize they never went back and finished the project or the thing that had their attention. And so now they have all these half-done projects and none of them have come to completion to actually serve them. And in that case, they're all wasted time, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing with saying yes when you want to say no is that I find the challenge of not showing up your best self. Let's just use the example I was giving earlier. So Matt and I decide we're going to collaborate together. I think it's a great idea. We're going to move forward. I say yes, but I'm having some reservations on my resources, which are almost always time, energy, and perhaps the resources of my team. But I say yes anyways, push forward. Well, what if I'm not showing up as myself? What if I don't end up being a great partner for Matt? That's not what I want either. And so I think looking at the bigger picture and determining, can you really have 2 feet in and be fully present in the thing that you're saying yes to, and that it's not stressing your team out and it's not at the expense of all the other projects and goals that you currently have.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were talking about how we tend to open a lot of tasks and then we don't actually close any. And many people have so many open, and then it's difficult to even know what to work on next. I always say that no one ever got a medal for starting. You only get a medal for closing and finishing, right?
Yes.
And so important to just be focused on a few things and actually finish them. And that's when you can actually see results, because otherwise you'll just be riding a wave of wishful thinking or dreams where you'll never actually accomplish them. And it's so important. That focus and that clarity is just so important to be able to get there.
I agree. I know that you work with your clients, probably giving them advice like this about saying no. And I'm interested in talking about, do you find that once you give them permission to say no, it's easier, or is it challenging based on their personality? How do you see people incorporating saying no more?
I would say both things. So it becomes easier once you get a shift in mindset and the permission from someone else saying it's okay for you to say no. But then equally, to some people, it's such a big deal to actually say no that they have to take sort of baby steps. And that's where I come in and I challenge them to say no, to do something uncomfortable that actually brings them to say no in a gradual way, but to bigger and bigger things, so they can say yes to things that maybe scare them now. Like you could be doing some public speaking or something else. I feel that it's the same thing. If you're uncomfortable saying no to things, it's quite likely that you're uncomfortable saying yes to some other things. And it's kind of a mirror thing. If you progress in one, you will progress in the other one as well. And then some people really want to please others. And it's kind of like a double bind, because you're saying yes to everyone, but then because you're saying yes to everyone, you will run out of time eventually and resources. So you never give enough to anyone. So it feels that you are pleasing everyone, but in reality, you're just not displeasing them. You're not really making them happy because you're not giving them enough. So all you're achieving is, I'm just not failing, but I'm not succeeding.
Right. Okay. So we have touched on 3 major reasons why we're so tempted to be busy versus productive. And then we've talked about some ways to overcome those temptations, right? And I think that what would serve our listeners is talking about, how do they know if they're working on busy stuff and productive stuff? Do you have any advice on handling the busy stuff? Because oftentimes it's busy, but I find, every business needs some busy work time, right? And so how do we make sure that that doesn't just mushroom and take up all of our time and squeeze out any productive time?
I would say 2 main strategies. Number one, I'd really like to theme my days. And I recommend that people can also theme, just half a day. And by that, I mean that you can say on Friday, I'm just going to do life admin or business admin or whatever that is. You can do it on Friday afternoon or the whole of Friday or whatever that is. So what happens is that that if you get something in on a Tuesday that fits in that category, but it's not urgent, it's not going to get you anywhere, but it needs to be done. In every business, there are a lot of things that just need to be done. There are admin, or maybe the things that just come up and need to be dealt with. But if they're not urgent, if they don't need to be done on the spot, then just assign them to that theme day. And then the great thing about that is that that you will action them on that day. So you have your free day ahead. That they're out of your mind for today. But at the same time, you can also batch them. So you can work on many different things which are similar, maybe that need to be worked on with the same people. You can do that in one day instead of doing half an hour here, half an hour there, 1 hour on Wednesday and another hour on the next Monday. So I think that theming days is a great way to handle the busy stuff that maybe it's not that important, but equally it's done, but it keeps you free and energized with enough time in your day to work on stuff that really, really matters, really moves the needle.
That's great. So I theme my days as well, or my weeks. So when do you do your admin? Like, what day is your admin?
On a Friday.
Yeah, that's my day too. I call it Power Hour, and I move everything into that time slot that is not urgent, that doesn't need to be responded to before Friday. A lot of administrative follow-up stuff. And I just do a rapid fire of just completing all those little one-off tasks by batching them. And I found Friday that works good because it's like buttoning up the end of the week and starting fresh for the next week. And I really like it in that time slot for sure. What are some of the other themes that you use in your weeks?
Yeah. So something I really like is I prepare my content on a certain day, I outline it. And then something I do is I transcribe most of my content. So even if it's written content, I talk through the outline and then have it transcribed. And then sometimes I edit it, sometimes it goes to my editor, and then I have a look. I do that on different days. So I outline it and I record it on one day. And then in the meantime, I get processed. And then 2 days later, so on a Wednesday, I actually go through it and I do the final editing. And then it is scheduled for the rest of the month or the rest of the week.
That's great. So I theme my days. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are client appointments. Monday and Fridays are interviews, like podcast interviews. And I try to get all the interviews there. I'm on other people's podcasts on there. That doesn't always work with their schedule. And then Mondays is teeing up my team. So inevitably, as you grow a team, you give work out and somehow work comes back to you, right? It's like a boomerang. There's things you have to review or you kind of have to take to the next step. And so Mondays are generally always laid out for, and I actually block it off per employee. So I spend 60 to 90 minutes on one person's stuff, the next person's. And when I say person, it's like departments in my business, right? Because I'm still a small business. So I have one person helping me with marketing stuff, one person with visibility, one person with my content. All the tasks that are associated with that are also batched because they're the same topic. And that is most of my Mondays. If I don't have a lot to do in that, then I always am working on a project. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I have 90 minutes. Sometimes I'll push it to 2 hours of content creation. And that could be anything. It could be a new keynote I'm working on. It could be podcast. It could be a course or training or coaching material. I fill that in ahead of time, the project that I'm working on that falls under content creation.
Yeah, I really like that.
I have found that creating your ideal week with block schedules puts a home for everything so that you don't feel obligated to do the busy work. Because like you said, you have closed that loop in your head of when. If we don't know when we're going to do the busy work, because it eventually has to get done, because if busy work is ignored, some busy work, right? If it's ignored, sometimes it becomes important or urgent if it's delayed for too long. So just knowing that you can look at something really quickly and qualify it and say, does this need my attention before Friday? Nope. And then it just goes in your blocked out time, as you said, right? Like your themed out time.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some similar themes on. I work with clients on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Just it depends, and on a couple of those days, it's just half a day, and then only on Thursday I do most of the day. But also, I like to keep half a day every week on, say, random ideas or random projects, which you may just be trying to ideate new things or think about new ways that I can grow my business, or maybe I can create the next product, or I can better serve my readers, my audience. And it's just that kind of like a blue sky thinking half day. And I find that that's really good because I just schedule in that time to have great ideas. And then, most of them don't happen because, again, of that filter we were talking about earlier. But other ones, they allow me to get to that goal in a more creative way. Because sometimes we get so set into our plan. I'm a big fan of planning, but sometimes I just follow it and just don't see the opportunities that are next to us. So just by having that blue sky thinking theme, then I can think about new ways of achieving the same thing, then filter it through that plan, filter it through that goal filter. And it's really good because it just challenges my thinking all the time. I don't mean that I go back to the drawing board and change my plan. That would be blasphemy. But it just challenges what I'm doing to see, like, okay, am I working on the right level? Am I working on the right things? Am I using the information that I have collected by using that plan for maybe 2 weeks or 2 months or 6 months? Am I using that feedback to do better? And I find that having that time in is really important because it feels something that we can always push back. We can always do later. Just look at what's working, what is, and what we could do better, what we could be doing differently.
Yes. I really like that idea and that you do it so frequently, right? And you said not to go and like change all the plans, but really have that time to think. I feel like one of the things that business owners desire is more time to think, right? Like thinking is not an easy thing. It's hard work to think. And yet the best things in our businesses come from thinking. As you said, it's the first thing that gets pushed out because of the busy work.
Yeah.
So carving that out with blocking it out and theming it and then protecting it, I would assume it allows you, I know for me that it does, I could get tempted by going down rabbit holes of ideas, but instead I just note them down and I revisit it during that time as well, right? And so then you're like, okay, right now when I'm supposed to be working on X, Y, and Z is not the right time, but there is a time where I can expand upon that idea. And that would be what you're calling the blue sky thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, it reminds you of what is working right now, and also whether you are getting lost in things that actually are not working, or maybe you shouldn't be working on, because, sometimes they kind of creep in anyway. So having that time to look at things and just step back for a moment, it's really, really crucial, I find.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, this has been a really good conversation. I think we touched on so many different topics and really just unbubbled the conversation that I think a lot of people are having, which is, yeah, it sounds all good and great to be productive, but I'm so tempted to being busy. It's kind of like the crutch that they keep going back to. And I think you shared a lot of great strategies to help them pursue forward into being more productive with their time. Matt, if our listeners would like to hear more from you and find out more about you, where can they do that?
They can find me on my blog at timezillionaire.com. And also they can find me on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram at Matt Sandrini. They can also send me an email if they find it on the website. I read all my emails, and that'll be good to hear about one takeaway and one action from this conversation. I'm a big fan of taking action. So if there is one action and they want to share it with me, they can share it with me on Twitter at Matt Sandrini.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And I think you have something special for our listeners today.
Yes, I wanted to share my 7-day free email course that I designed to go from busy to productive. It's just a few lessons that you'll get over a week, and they can find it at timezillionaire.com/straight talk.
Awesome. And as always, we will have all the links in the show notes you can find over at the show notes. Matt, thank you so much for jamming out to me about productivity and busyness versus productive. And this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure, and it's been fun.
Are you ready to power up your productivity? Get clarity and insights to move your business forward? Of course you are. It's time to achieve success in a big way, and I've got good news for you. You're only one step away from your success breakthrough. Apply today for your free productivity power up at successbreakthroughsession.com. Head on over to successbreakthroughsession.com. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Straight Talk. I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you learned today, based on some insights or ahas from my conversation with Matt, what are you going to take action on today? What are the small or big actionable items that if you take action on will change your business and life? That is really what is most important about the time we spent today. Is how is the information that you got from this episode going to impact your business and life moving forward? I would love for you to share your actionables inside our Productivity Straight Talk private Facebook community. If you're not already a member, you can join us for free by going to productivitycommunity.com. Again, that's productivitycommunity.com. I would love to hear what your insights and ahas were from this conversation with Matt. As always, I want to send a special thank you out to my listeners who are leaving reviews and sharing Productivity Straight Talk. This week, I have a special thank you going out to Mark S.A. Smith, who recently said, Amber's interesting insights and thoughtful guests make it easy to be the best person you can be, not just for your job, but for you. Energetic, irreverent, practical, and fun, this quick and easy listening deserves a spot on your podcast list. Thank you so much, Mark S.A. Smith. Well, that's my straight talk for you today. Until next time, have a productive week.